Hey there! Thank you so much for tuning into this webinar. We'll be providing information on the Cultural Hotspot program in Jane and Finch for 2025 and how you can apply for funding. Here are a few items that we're going to cover in this video. An overview of the Cultural Hotspot program, available funding streams and what you can apply for depending on your organization and/or practice, how you can engage with the Cultural Hotspot and the types of programs we fund, the application process and available support before your submission, and how to contact the Cultural Hotspot team with any questions. The Cultural Hotspot program was created in 2014 in response to a recommendation in the city's 2011 Creative Capital Gains Report, which provided a series of recommendations for arts and culture in Toronto. Since then, the Cultural Hotspot program has worked collaboratively with and dispersed funds to local, outside of the downtown core, not-for-profit arts and cultural organizations, artists, artist collectives, and community-based organizations through a competitive application process. In previous years, the program focused on larger programming areas, such as Scarborough, York, and Etobicoke. In 2022, a new hyper-local model was launched starting in Little Jamaica and Scarborough's Golden Mile neighborhoods. By focusing on smaller programming areas, the Cultural Hotspot program can deliver a more robust spotlight on arts, culture, and community in neighborhoods outside of Toronto's downtown. The program also seeks to return to a community multiple years in a row to build relationships, trust, and increase sustainability and impact. The Cultural Hotspot piloted a 2-year model in 2023 and introduced 2 new funding streams, Ignite Ideation and Live Arts Mentor. The program began in Jane and Finch in 2023, and we will continue programming in the community through 2025. The Cultural Hotspot will take place in Jane and Finch from June to October of 2025, highlighting the neighborhood's cultural significance and creative contributions to Toronto. Organizations, collectives, and community groups living in Jane and Finch or displaced from the neighborhood will be given priority for funding applications. The Cultural Hotspot program will be located within the area of Steeles Avenue to the north, Wilson Avenue to the south, Weston Road to the west, and Keele Street to the east. Here are some of the key pieces to consider when submitting your application, and what we are looking for when we are reviewing and evaluating. All projects in both funding streams must contribute to and celebrate the artistic and cultural life of the Jane and Finch community, happen between June 1st and October 31st of 2025, be free and open to the public whether it is an event or workshop, be feasible and realistic, especially within the timeline and dollar amount you are applying for. Ensure your project planning, implementation, and evaluation can be completed in the proposed timeline. Bring some additional resources, which we'll talk about a little later on, and be a Toronto-based organization with a connection or relationship to Jane and Finch. We always encourage new project proposals, but we're also open to funding projects that already exist in the neighborhood that may have enhanced components with Cultural Hotspot support. Priority will be given to projects that support emerging local artists, engage equity-deserving artists or are from equity-deserving communities, provide opportunities for local youth job placement or mentorship, and proposed by collectives or organizations based in Jane and Finch or displaced from the neighborhood. If you are a displaced collective or organization, your project must take place within the Jane and Finch boundary. Please note, youth mentorship is a mandatory element if you are applying for the signature funding stream. In 2025, the Cultural Hotspot will invest approximately $250,000 in funding to support community-engaged arts in Jane and Finch. This will be done through 2 funding streams. Signature funding. These funds are for organizations that have successfully delivered mid to large-size community-based arts and cultural projects for up to $22,000 each. Spark funding. for new, emerging, or established local artists and arts and community organizations for up to $9,000 each. Next, we will provide some details on the key determinants to having a successful application in each funding stream. For signature projects, we are looking for established organizations that have a history of delivering mid to large size community-based cultural projects, including a track record of implementing a project of that scale or size. Signature projects should seek new ways for residents to take part in arts programming and usually have multiple components. This could include workshops, activities, culminating events, or other initiatives. In the case of signature project, as mentioned before, a youth job placement or mentorship piece is a built-in component and mandatory. In terms of funding, we are bringing up to $22,000 per signature project to the table. That $22,000 is inclusive of a potential $2,000 which can be requested for accessibility needs. For instance, you may want to work with the deaf and/or disabled community and require additional funds for ASL, captioning, or other accessibility tools that can be added to a project. Up to $2,000 can be added to the base $20,000 for these purposes. Some of the key characteristics and features we look for in a Spark application overlap with what we look for in a signature application, with just a few key differences and on a smaller scale. The goal of Spark funding is to fund emerging local arts and community organizations, as well as individual artists. Funding available to Spark projects is up to $9,000. The base funding for Spark is $7,500, with an additional $1,500 that can be applied to accessibility support, just like with signature projects. This additional $1,500 can also be earmarked for youth employment and/or paid mentorship. Note: youth mentorship and employment is not mandatory as part of a Spark project like it is for signature. A note of importance: if you are applying as an individual artist or artist collective, you must work with a not-for-profit organization as a trustee. The City of Toronto can only transfer funds to a not-for-profit organization, so while identifying a trustee in your application is not mandatory, it is always helpful to think of this ahead of time and consider potential trustees. For more information on working with a trustee, please watch our video linked below. So now that you have your project idea, here are a few points to keep in mind regarding the application process. If you are an organization who has received funding during the previous program cycle, your final report must be completed prior to receiving 2025 funding. Ensure you have attended a funding info session, or in your case, have watched the funding info session webinar. Check. Remember, the Cultural Hotspot team is happy to support in the application process, and we encourage you to reach out to talk about your project idea. We can provide pointers and tips on how to write your application and craft a project budget. Applications will open in mid-October with a deadline of 5 p.m. on January 13th, 2025. Keep in mind that staff can only help review your application up to 2 weeks before the final deadline. The application will be through an online survey. If you require an alternative format, please reach out and request one. We will ensure that it is made available to you. Congrats! You've submitted your application. Now what? Please know that although you may not hear from us right away, your application has been received. We take reviewing each of our submissions seriously, and we spend quality time assessing. Not only will your application be reviewed by a member of the Cultural Hotspot team, but each submission will also be reviewed by a Jane and Finch resident-led peer advisory panel. You will receive notification about whether you will be receiving funding in March of 2025. If funding for your project is awarded, your organization will receive a letter of agreement outlining expectations and obligations. This letter forms a contract with a signature page that will need to be signed and returned to the City of Toronto prior to the release of funds. Funds will be deposited within 45 days of agreement sign-off. As mentioned above, all projects must be able to outline additional resources, and we encourage this as part of your Cultural Hotspot application. Additional dollars may include a contribution through your own operating budget, funding from another granting source, or from a private donor. Some other public funders you may want to explore include the Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, Artreach, or Street Art Toronto. We recognize that this may not be possible for everyone. Additional resources can also include in-kind support to the project as added value. This could include volunteers to support the program, in-kind administrative support, or access to free space. Please include any items like this in your application. Here are some of the areas that the Cultural Hotspot team members can help you with before your application submission. We'll also share some ways that the team can support if you have been approved for funding. We cannot stress this enough. We want to hear from you before your application is submitted. Up to 2 weeks before the application deadline, we can schedule a call to go over your project ideas and budget, including artist fees. If your project is successful for funding, sometimes finding space to host a program can be challenging. We are happy to connect you to local programming and exhibition spaces. We can work with our colleagues in Parks, Forestry, and Recreation and connect you to and support the permitting process for local parks and community centers. Need support with marketing your program? We can help. We have many city networks that we can use to help promote your event. We will work closely with you to approve and share marketing materials. Sometimes more general help is required. We can troubleshoot with you along the way and support where we can throughout the life of your project. Individual artists or collectives will need to have an organization act as trustee. If your project application has been approved, but you're not sure what sort of arts organization can help trustee your project, or you don't know how to reach out to them, the Hotspot team is happy to help with that. Need more information on trustees or artist fees to draft your budget? Check out the videos linked below. A bit more on programming space. You may already have a project space in mind, have your own space, or you're partnering with someone who can provide a venue for your project. Make sure that space will meet the requirements of your project, any equipment you need access to, and that the location is accessible for your participants, such as near a transit line. You may want to choose a space that is located close to participants you are trying to engage. For example, near a school, community center, library, or mall. There are many spaces within the Jane and Finch community to host your project. Local organizations and public spaces are popular programming locations and can potentially offer additional resources or supports, such as tech or outreach. It is important to inquire about space availability, booking processes, insurance requirements, permit requests, and pricing as early as you can. You do not need to have a space or venue booked at the time of your application. However, it is good to include ideas of where you envision your project in your application. Some suggestions include Black Creek Community Farm, city parks, Toronto Public Library locations such as York Woods, community centers such as Driftwood and Oakdale, Corner Commons, Downsview Hub, Flaunt-It Studios, Jane Finch Mall, including the JFM Plus Community Engagement Space, Jane and Finch Boys and Girls Club, Peach, and the Spot in Yorkgate Mall. The Cultural Hotspot is also part of a wider team of city staff who support community arts, and we wanted to take a moment to share a little bit about that. Our art services team boasts 4 cultural centers and galleries, which host a wide variety of diverse arts exhibitions and programs. Check out the website linked below to learn more about their opportunities for artists, including exhibitions and residencies. While each center works on a different schedule, you will start to see applications for exhibitions and residencies opening in spring of 2025. Please keep note of these important dates. Application opens mid-October. Applications are due by 5 p.m. on January 13th of 2025. Application assessments will take place in February of 2025. You can expect to hear notification of results by March of 2025. And June 2025 is when we'll have our Cultural Hotspot program launch. Remember all those times we told you to reach out to us? Here's how. On screen, you will see 3 members of the Cultural Hotspot team. Please take note and feel free to reach out at any time. If you want to access the team as a whole or have a general question, we are all available at culturalhotspot@toronto.ca. Please note, this inbox is generally faster to respond since you are accessing all of us at the same time. For more information, you can also visit our website at www.toronto.ca/cultural hotspot. Well, that's all. You've made it to the end. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the Cultural Hotspot. We look forward to seeing your application.